You think I'd marry damaged goods? Logan Pierce's voice cut through the Crystal Palace like a blade. Megan Sloan stood frozen in her wedding dress, 200 guests staring as her fiancé walked through the door with another woman's hand in his. This here's my wife. Married her this morning in Denver. He looked at Megan with something close to pity. You're pretty enough, Darlin, but I need a woman with fire, not silk. Someone who won't break the first time life gets hard. If you want to see how Megan survives this devastation, and what happens when a stranger offers her an impossible choice, subscribe to this channel and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Megan's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not when Logan turned his back on her. Not when his new wife, a dark-haired woman with rouge on her cheeks and a dress that looked more saloon than sanctuary, smiled at the crowd like she'd won something. Not when the whispers started spreading through the room like wildfire through dry grass. Did you know? Poor thing. The Sloans must be mortified. Her mother's hand gripped her arm, fingernails digging through the silk. Smile, Eleanor Sloan hissed. Do not let them see you break. But Megan was already breaking, had been breaking for months, maybe years, held together by nothing but the expectations everyone had pinned to her like decorations on a Christmas tree. Pretty Megan. Proper Megan. The daughter who would save the family ranch through a strategic marriage. Her father pushed through the crowd, his face the color of old leather left too long in the sun. Thomas Sloan had built an empire from nothing, and he looked at his daughter now like she was the one thing he couldn't fix. What did you do? His voice was low, dangerous. What did you say to him? Nothing. The word came out smaller than she'd intended. Papa, I didn't. You must have done something. He grabbed her other arm, and now both parents held her like she might run. Men don't walk away from this kind of arrangement without reason. Thomas. Her mother's voice carried warning. Not here. Where then, Eleanor? When the whole territory is watching our family become a laughingstock. He looked at Megan, and she saw something die in his eyes. Whatever faith he'd had in her, whatever love, it was gone. I gave that man everything. Access to our water rights, our cattle, our connections. And you couldn't even keep him interested long enough to say, I do. Logan was still there 20 feet away, accepting congratulations like this was his wedding day. Which Megan supposed it was. Just not with her. She's got spirit, he was saying loud enough for everyone to hear. That's what a man needs on the frontier, not some China doll who'll shatter first time the wind blows wrong. The dark-haired woman laughed, the sound carrying across the room. Oh, Logan, you're terrible. Just honest, sweetheart. Just honest. Megan felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart that implied she'd given it to Logan Pierce in the first place. This was different. This was the sound of every carefully constructed plan, every sacrifice, every quiet surrender to what her parents wanted shattering at once. I need to leave. She pulled away from her mother's grip. Megan, wait. No. She yanked free from her father, too, and the force of it surprised all three of them. I'm leaving. You walk out that door, and you're walking out on this family, her father said. You understand me. This is your fault, your responsibility to fix. How? The word came out sharp, almost a laugh. How do I fix a man marrying someone else? You should have been warmer, sweeter, given him what he needed instead of playing the ice queen. I did everything you asked. Megan's voice rose, and she didn't care who heard anymore. Everything. I smiled when you told me to smile. I stayed quiet when you told me to be quiet. I agreed to marry a man I barely knew because you said it would save us. And it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. Her mother stepped forward, reaching for her. Darling, please. Don't. Megan backed toward the door, her wedding dress catching on chairs and table corners. Don't call me that. Don't pretend this is about love or protection or anything except your ranch and your money and your reputation. You ungrateful... Her father's face went purple. Thomas? Eleanor grabbed his arm. Let her go. Let her cool down. She walks out now, she's not coming back. I mean it, Eleanor. I'm done. Megan reached the door. 200 faces watched her. 200 witnesses to the end of everything she'd been raised to be. She looked at her father one last time, memorizing the disappointment carved into every line of his face. Then I guess you're done, she said, and pushed through the door into the cold October air. The street was empty. Everyone who mattered was inside the Crystal Palace, watching her family implode. The afternoon sun was already dropping behind the mountains, painting everything gold and red, the kind of beautiful that made your chest ache. Megan walked. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to move, needed to put distance between herself and the wreckage of her life. Her wedding dress dragged in the dirt, collecting dust and mud, and probably horse manure, ruining thousands of dollars worth of imported silk. She laughed, the sound hollow and strange. The Silver Dollar Saloon sat at the far end of town, where respectable people didn't go. Where cowboys and drifters and men who'd given up on polite society gathered to drink away whatever demons chased them. Megan had walked past it 100 times, always on the other side of the street, always with her eyes straight ahead, like even looking at it might contaminate her. She walked straight through the door. The inside smelled like whiskey and sawdust and sweat. A piano played in the corner, something low and mournful. The bartender, a man with arms like tree trunks and a scar running from his eyebrow to his jaw, looked up and nearly dropped the glass he was drying. Miss Sloane. He said it like he'd seen a ghost. Every head in the place turned. A dozen men, maybe more, all staring at the woman in the destroyed wedding dress, standing in their sanctuary. Whiskey, Megan said. The good stuff, if you have it. The bartender glanced at the door like he expected her father to burst through any second. Miss, I don't think I can pay. She pulled a small purse from somewhere in the folds of her dress. Unless my money's not good here. Your money's fine. It's just... He looked at the other men, then back at her. This ain't really the place for... For what? For me. Megan felt that crack in her chest widen. Guess I'm finding out there's no place for me anywhere tonight. She walked to the bar, and the crowd parted like she was carrying something contagious. The bartender poured her whiskey with hands that shook slightly, sliding the glass across the scarred wood. Megan picked it up and drank it in one swallow. It burned all the way down, and she welcomed the pain. At least it was real. At least it was something she chose. Another, she said. The bartender poured. A man at the end of the bar spoke up. That's the girl Pierce was supposed to marry. I heard he married someone else this morning. Called her damaged goods right there in front of everyone. Jesus, that's cold. Megan drank the second whiskey, then a third. The world started to blur at the edges, and she felt something loosen in her chest. Not better exactly, just different. Mind if I sit here? The voice was deep quiet with an accent she couldn't quite place. Not Colorado, maybe Texas or further south. She turned. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of creek water in summer. He wore work clothes, a simple shirt, worn jeans, boots that had seen real miles. Everything about him was the opposite of Logan Pierce's carefully tailored suits and political ambitions. Free country, Megan said. He sat down, ordered his own whiskey, and didn't say anything for a long minute. Just sat there comfortable in the silence, in a way that most men weren't. You gonna ask me what happened? Megan finally said. Figure you'll tell me if you want to. Everyone else in here seems real interested. They're idiots. He took a drink. Man walks away from you that says everything about him and nothing about you. Megan laughed, bitter and sharp. You don't even know me. Don't need to. Saw you walk in here looking like the world ended and you're still standing. That tells me plenty. I'm not standing, I'm falling apart. Falling apart while still upright is just another kind of standing. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and Megan felt something shift in her chest. Name's Dylan. Dylan Harrington. Megan Sloane. I know. He smiled, small and sad. Everyone knows. That's the problem with small towns. Your business becomes everyone's entertainment. Well, I hope they enjoyed the show. Wasn't a show. Was a man being cruel because he could be. Dylan signaled for another round. You deserve better than that. Apparently not. My father made it real clear whose fault this was. Your father's wrong. You don't know him either. Don't need to. Any man who blames his daughter for another man's cowardice isn't thinking straight. Dylan's voice stayed quiet, but there was steel underneath. That's what it was, you know. Cowardice. Pierce wanted out of whatever arrangement y'all had, and instead of being honest about it, he humiliated you publicly. That's the act of a small man trying to feel big. Megan felt tears threatening and forced them back. She would not cry. Not here. Not in front of strangers who would talk about it for weeks. Why are you being nice to me? She asked. Why wouldn't I be? Because I'm damaged goods, apparently. Dylan set his glass down hard enough to make the bartender look over. That man's a fool. You want to know what I see when I look at you? What? Someone brave enough to walk out of that church. Someone strong enough to walk in here where she knew she'd be judged. Someone who's been told her whole life what to be and who to be it for, and just now decided she's done listening. He leaned closer, and Megan could smell leather and horses, and something clean like creek water. That ain't damaged. That's steel. The tears came anyway, hot and fast. Megan tried to turn away, but Dylan caught her hand, just held it, his palm warm and calloused against hers. It's okay to break, he said quietly. Long as you don't stay broken. I don't know how to be anything else right now. Then be broken for tonight. Tomorrow you figure out what comes next. The bartender brought another round without being asked. Megan realized the whole saloon had gone quiet, everyone pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. They're all staring, she said. Let 'em. They'll find something else to talk about by next week. I don't have a next week. I don't have anything. Dylan was quiet for a moment. Then, you got a choice to make. What choice? You can go back. Apologize to your father, grovel to Pierce, try to salvage whatever life they had planned for you. He paused. Or you can start over. Build something new. Something yours. With what? I don't have money. Skills. Nothing except a good name, and I just destroyed that. You got yourself. That's more than most people have. That's not enough. It's everything. Dylan turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Listen to me. I walked away from my family 5 years ago. They were rich, powerful, wanted me to be something I wasn't. I said no. Packed a bag, rode west, and didn't look back. And now I got a small ranch about 20 miles from here. Nothing fancy. Just me, some horses, land that's mine. I work hard, sleep well, answer to nobody. He squeezed her hand. Point is, life doesn't end just because the plan changes. Sometimes that's when it actually starts. Megan looked at their joined hands. Why are you telling me this? Because I recognize that look in your eyes. That's the look of someone standing at a crossroads, trying to decide which way leads home. He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Want to know a secret? What? Neither direction leads home. Home's something you build, not something you find. The piano player started a new song, something faster, and a few men got up to dance with the saloon girls who'd been watching from the corners. Life moving on like it always did, indifferent to individual tragedy. I can't go back, Megan said quietly. Even if I wanted to, my father meant what he said. Then don't go back. Go forward. Where? Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. Darlin, if a cowboy's what you need, I reckon I could be yours. Megan's breath caught. What? I'm serious. He turned her hand over, traced a line across her palm. You need a way out, a fresh start. I got land, a house, and a life I'd be willing to share. You don't even know me. I know enough. Know you're brave. Know you're honest. Know you just walked away from everything because you won't be something you're not. He met her eyes. That's more than most marriages start with. That's crazy. Maybe. But so is watching a good woman get destroyed because some politician wanted to make himself look big. Dylan's voice dropped lower. I ain't asking you to love me. Ain't asking for anything except the chance to show you that life can be different than what you've been taught. This is insane. Probably. He smiled. But you walked into this saloon in a wedding dress. Seems like you were already halfway to doing something crazy. Megan's mind spun. This couldn't be real. Men didn't propose to strangers. Women didn't accept. This was the kind of thing that happened in dime novels, not real life. But then again, nothing about tonight was real life. Real life was predictable, controlled, safe. Real life had ended the moment Logan Pierce walked through that door. Why would you do this? She asked. Help me. Because someone should have helped me when I was where you are. Because I got more space in my life than I know what to do with. Because... He stopped, started again. Because I've been watching you around town for 2 years, and I always thought you looked like a bird in a cage. Too pretty for the bars, too smart not to know they were there. You've been watching me. Not in a strange way, just noticing. Wondering what you'd be like if you weren't always having to be perfect. He shrugged. Guess I'm about to find out. The bartender cleared his throat. Dylan, you sure about this? Mac, you know me. When have I ever not been sure? There's being sure, and then there's marrying a woman you just met. Sometimes the best decisions are the quick ones. Megan pulled her hand away, needing space to think. This is moving too fast. You got somewhere else to be. She almost laughed. No. Family to go home to? No. Money for a hotel? A little, not much. Dylan spread his hands. Then what are you losing by saying yes? My mind, apparently. Maybe. Or maybe you're finally using it for the first time. He stood up, offered his hand. Come on, walk with me. Megan took his hand before she could think better of it. Let him lead her outside away from the watching eyes and whispered speculation. The night air was cold, sharp enough to clear some of the whiskey fog from her head. They walked down the street past closed shops and quiet houses where families were having dinner, where life was normal and predictable and safe. I don't love you, Megan said. Good. That makes 2 of us. Then why? Because love's not what you need right now. You need a partner. Someone who'll work beside you, not control you. Someone who sees you as an equal, not property. Dylan stopped walking, turned to face her. I can be that. Won't lie and say I'll be perfect. Won't promise things I can't deliver. But I'll work hard, treat you fair, and never make you feel like you're less than you are. That's the strangest proposal I've ever heard. You had a better one earlier today. How'd that work out? Megan wanted to be angry at the joke, but she laughed instead. You're terrible. I'm honest. That's different. He took both her hands now. Listen, you marry me tonight, tomorrow morning we ride out to the ranch. You don't like it. You don't like me. You can leave. I won't stop you. But at least you'll have had one night where you weren't someone's pawn. One night where you chose. One night, Megan repeated. Maybe more, maybe less. That's up to you. She looked at him, really looked at him, trying to see past the kindness to whatever trap might be waiting. But all she saw was a man who seemed tired of being alone, offering company to someone who'd just learned what alone actually meant. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay. Okay. Stronger this time. Let's do something crazy. Dylan's smile was bright enough to light the whole street. Mac, he called toward the saloon. Get the preacher. And just like that, Megan Sloan stopped being the girl who did what she was told and became the woman who jumped. The preacher arrived drunk, which felt appropriate for a wedding that made no sense. Reverend Cole stumbled through the silver dollar's doors with his collar askew and his Bible clutched against his chest like it might protect him from whatever madness had summoned him at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. He took one look at Megan in her ruined wedding dress and Dylan standing beside her, and his face went pale. "Dylan Harrington, what in the Lord's name?" "We need you to marry us," Dylan said simply. "Marry you, son. I just left the Crystal Palace. This woman was supposed to marry Logan Pierce today." Was being the important word. Dylan's hand found Megan's, and she was surprised by how steady his grip felt. "Now she's marrying me." Cole looked at Megan. "Miss Sloane, are you under duress?" "No." The word came out stronger than she expected. "I'm choosing this." "Choosing what exactly? You don't even know this man." "I didn't really know Logan Pierce either. Didn't stop everyone from planning that wedding." The preacher rubbed his face. "Your father's going to kill me." "My father already disowned me tonight. You got nothing to lose." Cole turned to Mac, the bartender, who was watching the whole scene with his arms crossed. "You gonna let this happen?" "Ain't my place to stop grown folks from making their own mistakes," Mac said. "Besides, Dylan's good people. More than I can say for Pierce." "That's not exactly a ringing endorsement for marriage." "It's enough," Megan said. "Please, just do it." Something in her voice must have reached him because Cole sighed and opened his Bible. "Fine. But I'm doing this by the book. No shortcuts, no rushing through. You want married, we're doing it proper." Dylan pulled out a chair for Megan, and she sat, her legs suddenly weak. The reality of what she was about to do crashed over her like a wave. She was marrying a stranger. A kind stranger maybe, but still someone she'd known for less than an hour. "You sure about this?" Dylan whispered, leaning close enough that only she could hear. "No." "Are you?" "Not even a little bit." He smiled. "But I never been sure about anything important. Seems like the big things require faith, not certainty." Cole cleared his throat. "We need witnesses." "I'll stand up," Max said immediately. "Me too." A woman emerged from the shadows, one of the saloon girls Megan had barely registered earlier. She was older than Megan expected, with kind eyes and gray threading through her dark hair. "Name's Sarah. Been working here 15 years. Seen a lot of bad decisions. This don't feel like one of those." "How can you tell?" Megan asked. "Because Dylan asked you. Didn't demand, didn't manipulate, didn't make it about what he needs. Just offered." Sarah pulled up a chair beside Megan. "That's rarer than you think, honey. Most men take. This one's offering to give." Cole began the ceremony with shaking hands. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here." "Skip to the important parts," Dylan interrupted. "No offense, Reverend, but we're all tired. The important parts are what make it legal." "Then say those. We don't need the poetry tonight." Cole looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Dylan's face stopped him. "Fine. Do you, Dylan Harrington, take this woman?" "I do," Dylan said before he could finish. "I haven't gotten to the actual question yet." "Don't matter what the question is. Answer's the same." Megan felt something flutter in her chest. Not love, she wasn't fool enough to mistake this for that, but something else. Hope, maybe. Or just the absence of the crushing weight she'd been carrying for so long. Cole turned to her. "And do you, Megan Sloane, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband for better or worse in sickness and health?" "I do," she said, cutting him off the same way Dylan had. "You're both impossible." But Cole was smiling now, just a little. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado, I now pronounce you man and wife." He paused. "Dylan, you may kiss your bride." Megan's breath caught. She hadn't thought about this part. Dylan leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. His lips brushed hers, gentle and brief, tasting like whiskey and something sweet she couldn't name. "Welcome to the rest of your life, Mrs. Harrington," he whispered. Mrs. Harrington. The name felt foreign, like trying on someone else's clothes. Mac produced a bottle of good whiskey and poured drinks for everyone. To the happy couple, he said, raising his glass. May you be less miserable than most. That's your toast. Sarah swatted his arm. I'm being realistic. Marriage is hard work, but these two look like they know that already. They drank, and Megan felt the whiskey burn away some of her fear. Not all of it, just enough. So what happens now? She asked Dylan. Now we figure out what married people do. I thought you'd have a plan. Plans are overrated. I'm more of a take-it-as-it-comes kind of man. That's terrifying. Or exciting, depending on how you look at it. Cole packed away his Bible. I'll file the paperwork tomorrow morning. Make it official in the county records. You do that. Dylan pulled out some bills and handed them over. For your trouble. This is twice what I usually charge. Consider it a bribe to keep quiet about this for at least 12 hours. Give us a head start before the gossip machine gets rolling. Cole pocketed the money. I'll do my best. But you know how news travels in this town. I do. That's why we're leaving before sunrise. Megan's head snapped up. We're leaving tonight. Not much reason to stay, is there? Unless you want to be here when your father finds out. She thought about Thomas Sloane's face when he learned she'd married a cowboy in a saloon. The rage, the humiliation. Part of her wanted to see it, wanted to watch him realize that his control over her had evaporated. But a larger part just wanted to disappear to start over somewhere where nobody knew who she was supposed to be. No, she said. Let's go. You got anything you need to collect clothes, belongings? Everything's at my parents' house. The house she'd lived in her whole life that she'd left 5 hours ago thinking she'd return as Logan Pierce's wife. I can't go back there. Then we'll buy new. Dylan stood offering his hand. You ready? Megan looked around the silver dollar at Mac and Sarah and Cole, and the handful of cowboys who'd witnessed the strangest wedding Colorado had probably ever seen. These people strangers, all of them had shown her more kindness in one night than her own family had in months. Thank you, she said to all of them. For this, for not judging. Honey, we're in no position to judge anyone, Sarah said. You just take care of yourself. And if he don't treat you right, she glared at Dylan. You come back here. We'll sort him out. Dylan laughed. Yes, ma'am. They left through the back door, Dylan's hand steady on the small of Megan's back. The alley was dark and cold, smelling of horses and waste, and the peculiar emptiness that came after midnight. 2 horses stood tied to a post. One was a massive black gelding, the other a smaller roan mare. That's Thunder, Dylan said, nodding to the black. And that pretty lady there is Rosie. She's yours now if you want her. Mine. Every woman needs her own horse. Independence starts with being able to leave if you need to. The words hit Megan harder than she expected. You're giving me a way out. I'm giving you a choice. Same thing I've been giving you all night. He untied Rosie and handed Megan the reins. You know how to ride? In a side saddle with proper gear. Well, tonight you're riding astride in a wedding dress. Think you can manage? I have no idea. That's the spirit. Dylan helped her up, his hands strong and sure. The dress tangled around her legs, silk bunching and tearing. Megan didn't care. That dress represented everything she was leaving behind. Dylan mounted Thunder with easy grace, like he and the horse were one creature. It's about 20 miles to the ranch. We'll take it slow stop if you need to rest. I won't need to rest. That stubbornness is gonna serve you well. He clicked his tongue, and Thunder started moving. Rosie followed, and Megan grabbed the saddle horn to keep from falling. They rode through town, past the Crystal Palace, where earlier tonight everything had fallen apart. The building was dark, now empty. Whatever celebration Logan Pierce had been enjoying was over. Megan wondered if he was thinking about her at all, or if she'd already become just a story he'd tell at parties. Remember that time I dumped the Sloane girl at the altar? "You're thinking too loud," Dylan said. "How can you tell?" "Because you got that look, like you're chewing on something bitter." Just wondering if Pierce is laughing about this. Probably. Mean people usually do. Dylan guided Thunder onto the main road heading west. But here's the thing about mean people: their laughter don't last. Eventually they run out of people to hurt, and then they're just alone with themselves. That's a special kind of hell. You sound like you know from experience. My father was the meanest son of a bitch in 3 counties, spent his whole life making everyone around him miserable, thinking it made him strong. Dylan's voice went quiet. Died alone in a house full of people. That's when I learned that power and love are different things. He had one, never got close to the other. Is that why you left? Part of it. Mostly I left because I realized I was becoming him, using his words, his methods, treating people like they were tools instead of human beings. He looked at her. I didn't like who I was when I was there. Out here, I get to choose who I am every single day. Megan adjusted her grip on the reins. Who did you choose to be? Someone honest, someone fair, someone who works for what he has instead of taking it. He smiled in the darkness. Someone who marries strange women in saloons and hopes it works out. That last part seems reckless. Maybe. But calculated risks never got anyone anything interesting. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the horses' hooves and the wind through the grass. Megan had never been out this late, had never seen the territory like this, empty and wild, and somehow more honest than it was during the day. The stars overhead were so bright they hurt to look at. Dylan. Yeah. Why did you really do this offer to marry me? He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, you really want to know? Yes. I've been alone for 5 years. Built something good, something mine, but nobody to share it with. Tried courting women the normal way, dances, church socials, all that proper nonsense. But every woman I met wanted me to be something I'm not. Wanted the politeness, without the honesty, the appearance, without the substance. And you think I'm different? I think you just walked away from a life built entirely on appearance. Yeah, I think you're different. He glanced at her. Plus, I've been watching you around town like I said. Saw how you'd look at the mountains when you thought nobody was paying attention. That longing look like you wanted to run toward them instead of always away. I did want that. I know. I recognize it because I felt the same thing before I left my family. That hunger for something real, something that's yours instead of theirs. He paused. Figured we might want the same things. Figured that was as good a foundation as any. A coyote called in the distance, lonely and haunting. Rosie's ears flicked, but she didn't spook. What if this is a mistake? Megan asked. Then we'll figure it out. Make a new plan. That's the thing about mistakes. They're only permanent if you refuse to change course. You make it sound easy. It ain't easy. It's just necessary. Dylan pointed ahead. See, that ridge ranch is just past there. Another hour, maybe less. Megan's stomach flipped. An hour until she saw the place that was supposedly her home now. An hour until she had to figure out what it meant to be married to a man she didn't know. Dylan, I need to tell you something. What's that? I don't know how to be a wife. The real kind, I mean. Not the decorative kind my mother was training me to be. Good. Because I don't know how to be a husband, so we'll both be terrible at it together. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He smiled at her, and even in the darkness, she could see the warmth in it. Megan, I don't need you to be perfect. Don't need you to cook fancy meals or throw parties or any of that society nonsense. Just need you to be present. To work beside me, talk to me, be honest with me. Can you do that? I think so. Then we're already ahead of most couples. They crested the ridge and the valley opened up below them. Megan couldn't see much in the darkness, just shapes and shadows that might be buildings, fences, livestock. her new life invisible until morning. "It's not much," Dylan said, and for the first time all night he sounded uncertain. "The house needs work. The barn too. Most of what I got is tied up in horses and land. But it's mine. Nobody can take it away. Nobody can tell me what to do with it." "Ours," Megan corrected. "You said mine. But it's ours now. Right?" Dylan looked at her, something shifting in his expression. "Yeah, ours." They rode down into the valley, and Megan felt the last piece of her old life fall away. She wasn't Megan Sloan anymore. Wasn't the perfect daughter, the strategic bride, the woman who'd been shaped and molded to serve someone else's ambition. She was Megan Harrington now, whoever that turned out to be. And for the first time in her life, that uncertainty didn't feel like fear. It felt like freedom. The ranch house materialized from the darkness, small, rough-hewn, nothing like the mansion she'd grown up in. Dylan helped her down from Rosie, and Megan stumbled, her legs stiff from the ride. "Easy," he said, steadying her. "You did good for your first real ride. I can't feel my legs." "That'll pass. Come morning you'll be sore as hell, but it passes." He led the horses to a small barn, talking to them soft and low as he unsaddled them. Megan watched, fascinated by the competence in his movements. This was a man who knew what he was doing, who'd built this life through work instead of inheritance. "You can go inside," Dylan said. "Door's unlocked. I'll be in soon as I get these two settled." Megan walked to the house, each step harder than the last. Her feet hurt, her head hurt, everything hurt. She pushed open the door and stepped into darkness that smelled like wood smoke and coffee, and something indefinably male. She didn't try to find a lamp, just sank down onto what felt like a bench near the door and let the exhaustion crash over her. 12 hours ago, she'd been preparing for her wedding to Logan Pierce, her whole future mapped out and inevitable. Now she was sitting in a stranger's house, married to a cowboy, with no idea what came next. Dylan came in a few minutes later, and she heard him moving around in the darkness. A match struck, and lamplight bloomed warm and golden. The house was even smaller than she'd thought, one main room with a stove and table and chairs, two doors leading to what must be bedrooms or storage. "You hungry?" Dylan asked. "No." "Thirsty?" "No." "Tired?" "Yes." He gestured to one of the doors. "That's the bedroom. Take it. I'll sleep out here." Megan looked up at him. "We're married." "We are. So why are you sleeping out here?" Dylan crouched down so they were eye level. "Because you married me out of necessity, not desire. I ain't gonna push for anything you're not ready to give. When and if you want more than separate rooms, you let me know. Until then, I sleep out here." That's... She didn't know what it was. Honorable, maybe? Or crazy? Or both? "Go to bed, Megan. Morning's gonna come early, and tomorrow we figure out how to actually live together." She stood swaying slightly and walked to the bedroom door, turned back. "Dylan? Yeah. Thank you. For tonight. For all of it." "Don't thank me yet. You might hate it here by next week." "Maybe." She smiled, surprising herself. "But it'll be my choice to hate it. That's worth something." "Yeah," he said softly. "It is." Megan closed the door behind her, found the bed in the darkness, and collapsed onto it fully dressed. The mattress was lumpy, the blankets rough, and it was the best she'd felt in years. Outside, she heard Dylan moving around, settling in for the night. Her husband. The word still felt strange, but less terrifying than it had hours ago. She'd jumped, and somehow, impossibly, she was still flying. Tomorrow, she'd figure out how to land. Tonight, she just let herself fall. Morning came too early, announced by roosters and sunlight stabbing through thin curtains. Megan woke disoriented, her body screaming from yesterday's ride, her mind struggling to piece together where she was and why everything felt wrong. Then she remembered. The wedding, the humiliation, Dylan, the marriage. She sat up too fast and immediately regretted it. Every muscle protested, her back felt like someone had beaten it with a hammer, and her thighs burned with a pain she'd never experienced. This was what real riding did to a body that had only known side saddles and gentle trots through manicured parks. The bedroom door opened without warning, and Dylan stood there holding a cup of something that steamed. "You're awake. Good. Coffee." Megan pulled the blanket up higher, suddenly aware she was still wearing yesterday's ruined wedding dress. "You can't just walk in here. It's my house. It's also my bedroom now, apparently." "Fair point." He set the cup on a small table near the bed. "How you feeling?" "Like I got trampled by a horse." "That's about right for your first long ride. Drink the coffee. It'll help." "Will it make my legs work again?" "No, but you'll care less about it." He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "We got work to do today. Lots of it. You gonna be able to move?" "I don't know. What time is it at 6:30? Megan wanted to die. "In the morning." "That's generally when 6:30 happens." Dylan's mouth twitched. "You're not a morning person." "I'm not a ranch person. I'm not sure what kind of person I am anymore." "You're the kind who needs to get dressed and come help me with the horses. We got 8 of them, and they don't care that you had a rough night." He left before she could argue, and Megan forced herself out of bed. Her legs nearly buckled. She caught herself on the wall and stood there breathing hard, wondering if this was what her new life would be: constant pain and early mornings, and men who didn't understand that ladies needed privacy. But she wasn't a lady anymore. She was Mrs. Dylan Harrington, ranch wife, whatever that meant. The coffee was strong enough to strip paint, but it did help. Megan drank it standing up because sitting down seemed impossible. She looked around the room properly for the first time: rough wooden walls, simple furniture, everything functional and nothing decorative. The opposite of her bedroom at her parents' house, where every surface had held some delicate thing her mother insisted was necessary for a proper young woman. She needed clothes. Real clothes, not silk and lace. But all she had was this destroyed wedding dress. Megan opened the bedroom door. Dylan was at the stove frying something that smelled like bacon and heaven. "I don't have anything to wear." He glanced at her. "Check the chest by the window. Might be something that fits." She found a trunk filled with men's clothes, shirts and pants that must have been Dylan's. She pulled out the smallest shirt she could find and a pair of pants that would need a belt. "These are yours." "They're all I got, unless you want to work in that dress." "I can't wear men's clothing." "Why not?" "Because it's not proper." Dylan turned from the stove, spatula in hand. "Megan, you married a stranger in a saloon last night. I think we're past worrying about proper." He had a point. She took the clothes back to the bedroom and changed, struggling with buttons and fabric that felt foreign against her skin. The pants hung loose on her hips, even with a belt cinched tight. The shirt swallowed her. But she could move in them, could breathe. That was something. When she came out, Dylan looked her over and nodded. "Better. Now you look like someone who can work." "I don't know how to work." "Not the kind you mean." "Then you'll learn." He handed her a plate piled with bacon, eggs, and biscuits that looked slightly burned. "Eat fast. Daylight's wasting." They ate in silence, and Megan forced down food even though her stomach was in knots. This was really happening. She was really here, married to this man, about to do work she had no idea how to do. "Dylan." "Yeah." "What if I'm terrible at this?" "You will be. Everyone's terrible at first." He sopped up egg with a biscuit. "But terrible is just the starting point. You get better by doing, not by worrying about doing." "That's not how I was raised." "I know. You were raised to be perfect from the start, never make mistakes, always be what other people needed." He looked at her directly. "That ends today. Here you get to be bad at things. You get to fail. You get to try again. That's the whole point." Megan set down her fork. "I don't know if I can do this." "Sure you can. You already did the hardest part." "What was that?" "You showed up." They finished eating, and Dylan led her outside into morning light that hurt her eyes. The ranch looked different in daylight, still small, still rough, but there was an order to it that she hadn't seen in the darkness. Fences that looked sturdy, a barn that had been well-built corrals with horses that watched them approach with intelligent eyes. "That's Thunder, you met him last night. Next to him is Bandit. Then there's Sage and Copper and Lightning and Bell and Storm." Dylan pointed to each horse as he named them. "And you know Rosie. You named a horse Lightning. He's fast. Made sense at the time." Dylan opened the gate to the closest corral. "Come on, I'll show you how to feed them." The next hour was a blur of instructions Megan couldn't follow. How much hay went where, which horses ate together, how to check their water troughs the right way to approach them so they didn't spook. Her head spun, trying to remember it all. "I can't do this," she said, after the third time she'd dropped the hay fork. "Yes, you can. You're just thinking too hard." Dylan took the fork from her and demonstrated again. "It's not complicated. You're making it complicated." "Everything's complicated. Only if you let it be." He handed the fork back. "Try again." She tried again. Dropped it again. Wanted to scream or cry or both. "I'm useless at this." "You're learning. There's a difference." "I don't see one." "That's because you're used to being good at everything immediately. But that's not real life. Real life is fumbling around until fumbling becomes competence, and competence becomes skill." Dylan leaned against the fence. "How long you think it took me to build this place?" "I don't know." 5 years. 5 years of making mistakes, fixing them, making new mistakes, learning from those. I wasn't born knowing how to build a ranch. I figured it out by trying and failing and trying again. 5 years, Megan repeated. "I don't have 5 years. You got today. That's all anyone's got. So stop worrying about being perfect and just do the work in front of you." She wanted to argue, but something in his voice stopped her. He wasn't being cruel. He was being honest. And maybe that was what she needed, someone who wouldn't pretend things were easy just to make her feel better. Megan picked up the fork and finished feeding the horses. It wasn't graceful, but she did it. "There," Dylan said. "That's one thing you can do now that you couldn't do an hour ago." "I can poorly feed horses." "It's a start." They moved on to the next task, and the next, and the next. Mucking stalls, which was exactly as terrible as it sounded. Checking fences for damage. Carrying water. Every job was harder than it looked, and Megan's body protested each new demand. But Dylan never complained when she was slow. Never criticized when she did things wrong. Just corrected her and moved on. Around noon, a rider appeared on the ridge. Megan's heart stopped when she recognized the horse, her father's prize mare. "Dylan." Her voice came out tight. He'd already seen. "Stay behind me. He's my father. And he's on my property uninvited. That makes him my problem." Thomas Sloan rode down into the valley like an avenging angel, his face carved from stone. He dismounted before his horse had fully stopped and strode toward them with purpose that promised violence. "Megan, get your things. You're coming home." "No, I'm not." She stepped out from behind Dylan. "This wasn't a request. You made a fool of yourself last night, but we can fix it. Logan Pierce is willing to overlook..." "Overlook what?" "His getting married to someone else. That marriage isn't legal. We've had lawyers look at it. He's willing to annul and go forward with the original plan if you apologize and agree to..." "She's not going anywhere," Dylan said quietly. Thomas finally looked at him. Really looked at him. I know your family. Your father was Charles Harrington, owned half the railroad stock in the territory." Was being the key word. "He's dead now, and I don't own anything of his." "You walked away from a fortune." "I walked away from becoming him. Best decision I ever made." "And now you think you can have my daughter?" Thomas's voice rose. "You think some saloon wedding makes you her husband? The law says it does. The preacher says it does. Most importantly, she says it does." Dylan's hand found Megan's. "She chose this. You don't get to unchoose it for her." "I'm her father. I know what's best. You knew what was best for your business deal. That's not the same thing. Thomas turned back to Megan. Listen to me. This man has nothing. No status, no connections, no future worth mentioning. You marry him, you're throwing your life away. No. Megan's voice was stronger now. I'm throwing away the life you wanted for me. That's different. We gave you everything. Education, refinement, opportunities most women never get. You gave me a cage and called it privilege. She stepped forward, still holding Dylan's hand. And I'm grateful for the education, for the chances I had. But I'm not grateful for being treated like property, like something to be traded to the highest bidder. That's not what we did. That's exactly what you did. Logan Pierce wasn't chosen because I'd be happy with him. He was chosen because he'd benefit you. Thomas's face went red. Happiness is a luxury. Security is what matters. Then you and I have very different definitions of security. Megan's throat was tight, but she kept going. I feel more secure here after one day than I ever did in your house. That's the shock talking. Give it a week. You'll realize what you've done. Maybe. But it'll be my realization, not yours. Her father looked at Dylan. You're making a mistake. This girl doesn't know the first thing about ranch life. She'll be a burden. Then I'll carry the burden. Dylan's voice stayed level. But I don't think she will be. I think she's stronger than you ever let her be. You don't know her. Maybe not, but I'm learning. And I'm doing it by listening to her, not telling her who she is. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made Megan's blood run cold. Logan Pierce won't let this stand. He'll come for her. Let him try. I'm serious. He's got pride, and you've damaged it. Men like that don't forget. Men like that are cowards. Dylan's grip on Megan's hand tightened. And I'm not afraid of cowards. You should be. He's got influence, money, men who'll do what he says. He's got everything except the one thing he wanted. That's gotta burn. Thomas shook his head. You're both fools. But I can see I'm not going to change your mind today. He looked at Megan one last time. When this falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. You made your choice. Live with it. He mounted his horse and rode away without looking back. Megan watched until he disappeared over the ridge, feeling something crack inside her chest. Not grief exactly. More like the final severing of a rope that had been fraying for years. You okay? Dylan asked quietly. I don't know. Am I supposed to feel this empty? Probably. You just lost your family. Did I? Or did I just realize I never really had one? Dylan pulled her close and Megan let herself lean against him. This man she barely knew offered more comfort than her father ever had. Pierce is really going to come, isn't he? She asked. Maybe. Your father's right that men like him don't like losing. What'll we do? We'll handle it. Dylan's voice was steady. Together. You keep saying that. Together. Like you really mean it. I do mean it. You're my wife. That means something to me, even if it happened fast. Megan pulled back to look at him. What does it mean to you? Means I stand beside you. Protect you if I can support you when I can't. Means your fights are my fights now. That's not fair to you. This mess isn't your problem. I made it my problem when I asked you to marry me. He touched her face gentle. No taking it back now. You might want to, when things get hard. Things are already hard. That's not what scares me. What does scare you? Dylan was quiet for a moment. That you'll wake up one day and realize you settled. That you married me out of desperation, not choice, and you'll resent me for it. The honesty in his voice made Megan's chest tight. I won't. You don't know that. No, but I can promise to try not to. Is that enough? It's more than I expected. He smiled, sad and real. Come on, we got more work to do before dark. They worked until sunset, and Megan learned a dozen more things she was terrible at. But with each task, She felt a little less lost, a little more like maybe she could actually do this. That night, Dylan cooked dinner stew that was actually good, and they ate without talking much. Megan was too tired for conversation, too overwhelmed by everything that had happened. 2 days ago, she'd been someone's fiancée. Now, she was someone's wife. The speed of it was dizzying. Dylan. Yeah. Thank you for standing up to my father today. That's what husbands do. Not all of them. Logan wouldn't have. Logan's an idiot. Dylan set down his spoon. And before you argue, think about it. He had you and he walked away. That's the definition of stupid. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know enough. Know you're brave and honest and willing to work even when everything hurts. He looked at her across the table. That's more than most people ever show me. Megan felt heat rise in her face. You barely know me. Then we'll keep learning. That's how this work is, right? A little more each day until someday we look at each other and realize we know everything. That's impossible. You can't know everything about another person. Maybe not, but we can try. Later, lying in bed alone again, Dylan had insisted on keeping the sleeping arrangement the same. Megan stared at the ceiling and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. This man, this life, this strange new version of herself that was emerging one painful task at a time. Her body ached worse than yesterday. Her hands had blisters. Her pride was in tatters. But underneath all of that, there was something else. Something that felt suspiciously like hope. Tomorrow she'd be better at feeding horses. Next week, maybe she'd be good at it. Next month, she might look back and realize she'd become someone she actually liked. Or maybe she'd fail completely. Maybe her father was right, and this whole thing was a mistake that would collapse around her. But at least it would be her mistake, her collapse, her choice. And for now, that was enough. She heard Dylan moving around in the main room, settling in for the night. Her husband. The word still felt strange but less foreign than yesterday. Give it time, and maybe it would feel real. Outside, a horse whinnied. The wind picked up, rattling the window. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, real thunder this time, not Dylan's horse. A storm was coming. But Megan had weathered worse. She closed her eyes and let exhaustion take her, dreaming of horses and hard work and a man with creekwater eyes who'd offered her a way out when she'd needed one most. The storm broke 3 days later, but it wasn't the weather kind. Megan was in the barn trying to repair a saddle strap when she heard horses. Multiple horses. She looked up through the open door and saw 5 riders coming down from the ridge, moving with purpose that made her stomach drop. Logan Pierce rode at the front. Dylan. She didn't recognize her own voice, high and tight with fear. He was beside her in seconds, rifle in hand. Get in the house. No. Megan. I said no. She grabbed a pitchfork, the only weapon she could reach. I'm done running from him. Dylan looked at her, something fierce and proud flashing across his face. Stay close to me then. Don't do anything stupid. That's rich coming from the man who married me in a saloon. Fair point. They walked out together, and Pierce pulled his horse to a stop 20 feet away. He looked different than he had at the wedding, harder, somehow meaner. The men with him were ranch hands, the kind who got paid to be intimidating. Megan. Pierce said her name like he owned it. Time to stop this nonsense and come home. This is my home. That shack. He laughed, and his men joined in. You're joking. I'm not, and you need to leave. Not without you. Pierce dismounted, and his men followed. I've talked to your father. We've worked out a new arrangement, better terms for everyone. I don't care about your arrangement. You should. I'm offering to forgive what you did. Take you back, make you my wife like we planned. All you have to do is admit this was a mistake. Dylan stepped forward. She's already married, to me. That's not a real marriage. You took advantage of a woman in distress. I offered her a choice. That's more than you did. Pierce's jaw tightened. Harrington is it I know about you. Rich boy playing cowboy pretending he's not just slumming until he gets bored. Funny. I could say the same about you. Politician playing rancher buying your way into power because earning it was too hard. Watch your mouth. Or what you'll do what exactly... Dylan's voice stayed calm, but Megan felt the tension coiling in him. You got no claim on her, no rights, nothing except wounded pride, and that's your problem, not mine. Pierce turned back to Megan. Is this really what you want? A man with nothing? A life of scraping by? Yes? You're lying to yourself. I'm not. For the first time in my life, I'm telling the truth. Megan raised the pitchfork slightly. Now get off our property. Our property? Pierce laughed again. Listen to her. 3 days and she thinks she's a ranch wife. She is a ranch wife, Dylan said. And you're trespassing. One of Pierce's men spoke up. Boss, maybe we should... Shut up. Pierce never took his eyes off Megan. You think I came here to ask nicely? I came here to take what's mine. She's not yours, Dylan said. She never was. I paid for her. Your father and I had a contract. I'm not property, Megan said, her voice shaking with rage. And any contract my father made doesn't bind me. You're wrong about that. Pierce pulled a paper from his coat. This here's a breach of contract lawsuit. Your father's ranch is collateral. He defaults on our agreement because you won't honor it, he loses everything. Megan's blood ran cold. You're blaming him for what you did. I'm holding him accountable for raising a daughter who breaks her word. I never gave my word. I was told what to do, and I finally refused. Same thing. No, it's really not. Dylan's hand tightened on the rifle. And that paper doesn't mean anything here. Take it to court if you want. But she's not going with you. Pierce smiled, and it was the ugliest thing Megan had ever seen. I was hoping you'd say that. He nodded to his men. Bring her. The ranch hands moved forward, and everything happened too fast. Dylan raised the rifle, and Pierce drew a pistol, and Megan was swinging the pitchfork before she knew what she was doing. One of the men grabbed for her, and she caught him in the shoulder with the tines. He yelled, stumbled back. Megan down! Dylan's voice cracked like thunder. She dropped, and he fired over her head. The shot went wide deliberately, but it froze everyone. Next one won't miss, Dylan said. Pierce laughed. You're not going to shoot me. Try me. You shoot me, you'll hang. Self-defense doesn't work when there's 5 witnesses saying otherwise. Then I guess we all die here today. Dylan's voice went flat, empty of everything except certainty. Because I'm not letting you take her. The moment stretched brittle and dangerous. Megan could hear her heart pounding, could feel sweat running down her back despite the cold. Then someone else spoke. That's enough, Logan. Everyone turned. Thomas Sloan rode into the yard, and behind him were a dozen men ranch hands from the Sloan property, all armed. Father. Megan couldn't process what she was seeing. Thomas dismounted slowly. Put the gun away, Logan. Stay out of this, Thomas. This is between me and your daughter. No, it's between you and me. Thomas walked forward until he was standing between Dylan and Pierce. I came here to tell my daughter I was wrong. Found you here instead threatening her. That simplifies things. I'm not threatening. I'm reclaiming what's mine. She was never yours. I see that now. Thomas looked at Megan, and his face was different than it had been 3 days ago. Older maybe, or just more honest. I came here to apologize. To tell you that you were right about everything. Papa, let me finish, please. He turned back to Pierce. The deal's off, Logan. All of it. Keep your money, keep your influence. My daughter's not for sale. You'll lose the ranch. Maybe. But I'll keep my soul. Thomas's voice hardened. And if you push this lawsuit, I'll make sure everyone in the territory knows exactly why the deal fell through. How you humiliated my daughter publicly, then tried to force her back out of spite. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. And I'll testify to it in court. Thomas stepped closer. You think your political career survives that, everyone knowing you're a man who treats women like property? Pierce's face went red. You're making a mistake. I've made plenty. This isn't one of them. Thomas nodded to his men. Escort Mr. Pierce off this property. If he resists, you have my permission to make him regret it. The Sloan Ranch hands moved forward, and Pierce's men looked at each other nervously. They were outnumbered 2-1, and everyone knew it. This isn't over, Pierce said. Yes, it is. Thomas's voice was final. Go home, Logan. Find someone who wants you. My daughter's not available. Pierce stared at Megan one last time, and she stared back. She wasn't afraid anymore. Whatever power he'd had over her was gone, burned away by 3 days of hard work, and a man who treated her like an equal. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, Pierce said. No. Megan's voice was steady. The biggest mistake was ever agreeing to marry you in the first place. This is me fixing it. He left with his men, and the Sloan Ranch hands followed to make sure they kept going. The yard went quiet except for the wind and the horses shifting nervously. Thomas turned to Megan. I'm sorry. For what? For everything. For treating you like a business asset instead of my daughter. For not listening when you tried to tell me you weren't happy. For blaming you when Pierce humiliated you. He paused, struggling. For not being the father you deserved. Megan felt tears coming and didn't fight them. Why now? Why'd you change your mind? Your mother. She sat me down 2 nights ago and told me if I didn't fix this, she'd leave me. Thomas smiled sadly. 30 years of marriage, and that's the first time she's ever threatened that. Made me realize what I was about to lose for the sake of pride and money. She said that. She said a lot more than that. Most of it about what a fool I've been. He looked at Dylan. You treat her right. I do my best. That's all any of us can do. Thomas held out his hand. I'm sorry for how I acted before. You seem like a decent man. Dylan shook his hand. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Thank your wife. She's tougher than I gave her credit for. I noticed. Thomas turned back to Megan. I know I can't undo what happened, can't take back the things I said, but I'd like to try to be better, if you'll let me. Megan looked at her father, really looked at him, and saw something she'd never seen before. Humility, maybe even understanding. I'd like that, she said quietly. Can I hug you? She nodded, and he pulled her close. She couldn't remember the last time her father had hugged her. Maybe never. He'd always been too proper, too controlled. But now he held her like she was something precious he'd almost lost. I love you, he said. I should have said that more. Should have shown it better. I love you too, Papa. They stood like that for a long moment, and Megan felt something inside her shift. Not forgiveness exactly, it was too soon for that. But maybe the beginning of it. The possibility that wounds could heal if people tried hard enough. When they pulled apart, Thomas wiped his eyes. I should go. Let you get back to your work. Will I see you again? If you want to. Your mother would like you to come for dinner sometime, when you're ready. I'll think about it. That's all I can ask. He mounted his horse. Dylan, you take care of her. Yes, sir? And Megan, you ever need anything, money, help, anything at all, you let me know. This is still your family no matter what happens. He rode away, and Megan watched until he disappeared. Dylan came up beside her, his presence solid and grounding. That was unexpected, he said. Very. You okay? I don't know. I'm happy he came. Grateful he stood up to Pierce. But I'm also angry about everything that led to this moment. Those can both be true. Can they? Sure, people are complicated. We can love them and be mad at them at the same time. Dylan put his arm around her shoulders. You don't have to figure out how you feel right now. Just feel it and sort it out later. Megan leaned into him, exhausted from adrenaline crash. Do you think Pierce will come back? No, your father's right. Pierce cares too much about his reputation to risk the scandal. He'll find someone else to marry, someone who'll make him look good, and he'll forget you ever existed. Good. Although I gotta say, watching you stab that guy with a pitchfork was impressive. Megan laughed, surprised by the sound. I didn't even think, I just reacted. That's what makes it impressive. You got instincts. He turned her to face him. You were brave today, standing up to him like that. I was terrified. Brave and terrified aren't opposites. Brave is being terrified and doing it anyway. Is that what you were when you offered to marry me? Dylan smiled. Terrified out of my mind. Still am most days. Of what? That I'm not enough. That this place isn't enough. That someday you'll wake up and realize you settled for less than you deserved. Dylan, let me finish. I know I'm not rich, not powerful, not the kind of man who can give you an easy life, but I can give you an honest one, a partnership, a chance to build something that's yours. He cupped her face. That's all I got to offer. I hope it's enough. Megan looked at this man who'd become her husband almost by accident, who'd stood between her and danger without hesitation, who'd given her space to be herself instead of demanding she be someone else. It's enough, she said. More than enough. He kissed her then, and it was different from the brief press of lips at their wedding. This was real, deliberate, full of something that might become love if they gave it time. When they pulled apart, Megan was breathing hard. Dylan. Yeah. I think I want to stop sleeping in separate rooms. His eyes widened. You sure? No, but I'm tired of being sure about everything. I want to try this, really try it. We can take it slow. I know, but I want to start. She smiled. Unless you've changed your mind about wanting me. Not even a little bit. He kissed her again, slower this time. But we got work to finish first. Horses don't care about our revelations. Always with the horses. Horses keep us alive. Romance can wait until after dinner. You're terrible at romance. I know, but I'm good at other things. You'll see. They went back to work, but everything felt different now. Lighter somehow. Like the storm had passed and left clean air behind. That night after dinner, Megan moved her few belongings into Dylan's room. He watched from the doorway, nervous in a way she'd never seen him. You can still change your mind, he said. I won't. But you can. Dylan, stop. I'm here because I want to be. She sat on the bed and looked at him. Come here. He crossed the room and sat beside her. They stayed like that for a while, not touching, just sitting in the quiet. I don't know what I'm doing, Megan finally said. Neither do I. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He took her hand. How about we figure it out together? Together. Megan tested the word, found it fit better than it had a week ago. I like the sound of that. Me too. They fell asleep that night, curled together, and when Megan woke in the morning with Dylan's arm around her waist, she felt something she'd never felt before. Home. Not the building, not the ranch, not even the man specifically. Just the feeling that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The next weeks passed in a blur of work and learning and slowly understanding what it meant to be married to someone who saw her as an equal. Dylan taught her to ride properly, to rope cattle, to fix things that broke. She taught him that talking about feelings wasn't weakness, that asking for help was strength, that marriage worked better when both people bent instead of one breaking. They fought sometimes, loud, honest arguments about money and work and how to do things. But they always came back together, always figured it out, always chose each other at the end of the day. And slowly, without either of them quite noticing when it happened, the partnership they'd built started to feel like love. 6 months changed everything and nothing at all. Megan woke before dawn now without Dylan having to shake her awake. Her hands were calloused, her arms strong from work that had seemed impossible that first morning. She could rope a calf, mend a fence, birth a foal without flinching. The woman who'd walked into the Silver Dollar in a wedding dress felt like a stranger she'd invented. You're thinking too loud again, Dylan mumbled beside her. How do you always know? You get this crease right here. He touched the space between her eyebrows. Shows up when your brain's working overtime. Maybe I like thinking. I know you do. It's one of my favorite things about you. He pulled her closer. What's got you chewing on things this early? Just realizing how different I am now. Different how, stronger, happier, more myself than I've ever been. She turned to face him. That scare you? Why would it? Because strong women scare most men. Dylan laughed. Megan, I married you hoping you'd get stronger. Weak women are exhausting. Strong ones are interesting. You're strange. And you're stuck with me. I know. She kissed him. Lucky me. They got up and started the morning routine that had become as natural as breathing. Feed the horses. Check the cattle repair. Whatever had broken overnight. The ranch had grown in 6 months. They'd bought 3 more horses, expanded the pasture, even started talking about hiring help come spring. Over breakfast, Dylan said something that made Megan's coffee cup freeze halfway to her mouth. Your mother sent a letter, invited us to Sunday dinner. When? This Sunday. That's 3 days away. I'm aware. Dylan watched her carefully. You don't have to go if you're not ready. It's been 6 months. I should be ready. Should isn't the same as are. Megan set down her cup. She'd seen her parents twice since that day with Pierce brief awkward visits where everyone was too polite and nothing real got said. Her father apologized repeatedly. Her mother cried. Megan accepted it all but couldn't quite feel it yet. I want to go, she said. I think. That's convincing. Dylan, what if it's terrible? What if we go and they try to, I don't know, fix me, make me back into what I was? Then we leave. Simple as that. He reached across the table. But I don't think that's what'll happen. Your father's changed. I can see it when he visits. He looks at you different now. How? Like he's proud. Like he finally sees you instead of just seeing what he wanted you to be. I hope you're right. Only one way to find out. Sunday came faster than Megan wanted. She spent all morning trying to decide what to wear, finally settling on a simple dress, not fancy enough to be her old life, not rough enough to be making a statement. Just normal. Just her. The ride to her parents' ranch felt longer than 20 miles. Dylan kept up a steady stream of conversation about nothing important, and Megan loved him for understanding she needed the distraction. The house looked the same, massive, imposing, everything about it designed to impress. But Megan didn't feel small looking at it anymore. She'd built something too now, something that was hers. Her mother opened the door before they could knock, and Eleanor Sloane looked older than Megan remembered. Or maybe just more real, without all the careful composure she usually wore. Megan, Dylan, come in. Eleanor stepped back, wringing her hands. I've been cooking all morning. I hope you're hungry. Starving, Dylan said easily. It smells amazing in here. They followed Eleanor to the dining room, and Megan's breath caught. The table was set simply, none of the formal china and crystal she remembered from childhood dinners. Just regular plates and honest food. Thomas was already seated, and he stood when they entered. Megan. He said her name like he was testing whether he still had the right to use it. Papa. You look good. Healthy. Hard work'll do that. I can see that. He gestured to the chairs. Please, sit. Let's eat before everything gets cold. Dinner started awkward and silent, everyone too careful with their words. Then, Dylan asked Thomas about cattle prices, and her father relaxed, talking about something concrete. Eleanor asked Megan about the ranch, and Megan found herself telling stories about learning to rope and the time she'd accidentally let all the chickens out. You have chickens now. Eleanor smiled. 12 of them. They're terrible. Chickens usually are. I hated ours when I was young. You had chickens. Before I married your father, yes. My family had a small farm in Missouri. Eleanor's expression went distant. I was good at it too. Loved being outside working with my hands. Then I married into money and had to learn to be proper instead. Megan stared at her mother. I never knew that. You never asked, and I never told you. Eleanor set down her fork. I think that was my biggest mistake, raising you to be what I became instead of teaching you to be what I was, to be strong and capable and not afraid of hard things. Mother, let me finish, please. Eleanor's voice shook. I watched your father arrange that marriage to Logan Pierce, and I went along with it because that's what I'd been taught to do. Support your husband even when he's wrong. But when you left, when you chose your own path, I realized I'd been wrong about everything. You weren't wrong about everything. I was wrong about the things that mattered, about what makes a woman valuable, about what makes a life worth living. Eleanor looked at Dylan. You're good to her. I try to be. That's all we can ask. She turned back to Megan. I'm proud of you. I should have said that 6 months ago, but I'm saying it now. You're braver than I ever was. Thomas cleared his throat. While we're doing confessions, I need to say something too. He looked at Dylan. I had lawyers look into your family, your father's estate. Dylan's expression closed. Why? Because I wanted to understand what you'd walked away from, what you'd given up. Thomas paused. It was substantial, more than I realized. You could have been one of the richest men in the territory. I know what I gave up. Do you know what you gained instead? Thomas gestured to Megan. Because my daughter's worth more than any inheritance. And you saw that when no one else did. When I didn't. Mr. Sloan. Thomas, please. Thomas, I didn't marry Megan to gain anything. I married her because she deserved better than what she was getting. I know. That's what makes you right for her. Thomas stood, walked to a cabinet, and pulled out a document. This is the deed to the South 40 acres, the parcel that borders your ranch. Dylan's eyes widened. Sir, I can't. You can and you will. Call it a wedding present. Call it an apology. Call it whatever you want. But that land's yours now. Both of yours. Megan felt tears coming. Papa, that's too much. It's not nearly enough, but it's a start. Thomas set the deed in front of Dylan. Build something good there, something that lasts. Show me how a real partnership works. Dylan looked at Megan, and she nodded. He picked up the deed with hands that shook slightly. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. Say you'll take care of my daughter. That's payment enough. After dinner, Eleanor took Megan into the garden while the men talked business. They walked in silence for a while, breathing cold air that smelled like coming snow. Do you love him? Eleanor finally asked. Yes. When did you know? Megan thought about it. There wasn't one moment. It was 100 little ones. Him teaching me to rope. Him standing up to Pierce. Him letting me fail without making me feel weak. Him sleeping on the floor for weeks until I was ready for more. She smiled. It built up so slowly I didn't notice until one day I realized I couldn't imagine life without him. That's how real love works. Not the lightning strike everyone talks about, just gradual certainty. Is that how it was with Papa? No. With your father, it was convenience that became affection, that eventually became love. But I think your way is better. Eleanor stopped walking. I want to tell you something. What? After you left after that horrible day I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing your face when Logan Pierce called you damaged goods, the humiliation, the hurt, and I realized I'd helped create that moment by teaching you that your value came from who you married, not who you were. Mother. So I told your father that night that either he fixed things with you or I was leaving. First time in 30 years I ever threatened that. First time I'd ever really stood up to him. You said you'd leave. I meant it too. I was tired, Megan. Tired of being the perfect wife. Tired of keeping quiet. When I disagreed, tired of watching my daughter be turned into a smaller version of me. Eleanor's voice broke. You leaving was the bravest thing I'd ever seen. It woke me up. I'm glad. Are you happy? Really happy? Yes. I work harder than I ever have. I'm tired all the time. My hands are ruined. My back aches. And I've never been happier. Eleanor hugged her, and this time, it felt real. Then I'm happy too. They walked back to the house, and Megan felt something settle in her chest. Not complete forgiveness, that would take time, but the beginning of understanding. Her parents were trying, and that mattered. Dylan and Thomas were on the porch talking easy like old friends. When Dylan saw Megan, his whole face lit up, and she felt her heart skip. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "Yes." They said their goodbyes, promised to visit again soon, and rode away with the deed to 40 new acres, tucked safely in Dylan's coat. Megan looked back once and saw her parents standing together, her mother's head on her father's shoulder, both of them waving. "You okay?" Dylan asked. "Better than okay." She smiled at him. "I got my family back. Different than before, but maybe better." Different usually is better. They rode in comfortable silence until Megan said something that made Dylan pull thunder to a stop. "I'm pregnant." "You're what?" "Pregnant." "About 3 months, I think." Dylan stared at her. 3 months. "How long have you known?" 6 weeks. Maybe 2 months. I wasn't sure at first, and then I was scared to tell you." "Scared why?" "Because we never talked about children. Because everything happened so fast. Because I didn't know if you'd be happy or terrified or—" He kissed her so hard she nearly fell off Rosie. When they broke apart, he was grinning like a fool. "I'm happy. I'm terrified. I'm everything at once." He touched her face. "You're having a baby. We're having a baby." "We're having a baby." He repeated it like he couldn't quite believe it. "Holy hell, Megan, we're having a baby." "You keep saying that." "Because it's the best news I've ever heard." He looked at her stomach, then back at her face. "Are you happy about it?" "Yes, and scared, and excited, and everything at once." "Exactly." They rode the rest of the way home talking about babies and names and how they'd need to add on to the house. Dylan was already planning, already figuring out how to make it work, and Megan loved him for the certainty in his voice. That night, lying in bed with Dylan's hand on her stomach, Megan thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago. Scared, controlled, living a life that wasn't hers. That woman felt like a story she'd heard, not someone she'd been. "Dylan." Thank you." "For what?" "For asking me to marry you that night. For seeing something in me worth saving." "I didn't save you. You saved yourself." "Maybe, but you gave me the chance to do it." He kissed her temple. "We saved each other. That's how this works." 3 years passed before Megan really understood what Dylan had meant. The ranch prospered in ways neither of them expected. The 40 acres Thomas gave them tripled their grazing land. Dylan's reputation for honest horse trading spread, and buyers came from 3 territories over. They hired 2 ranch hands, then 4, built a bigger barn, expanded the house twice. Megan gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, after the saloon girl who'd been kind when kindness mattered. 14 months later came a son they called Thomas, and her father cried when they told him. But prosperity brought problems too. A harsh winter killed half their cattle. A drought the next summer nearly broke them. Dylan injured his back and couldn't work for 6 weeks. Megan got sick, dangerously sick, and spent 2 months barely able to get out of bed. Through all of it, they held on to each other. They fought when stress got too high. They cried when loss felt too heavy. They celebrated the good days and survived the bad ones. They built something that was bigger than either of them alone could have managed. Logan Pierce lost his bid for territorial governor after a scandal involving embezzled funds. Last Megan heard he'd moved east chasing smaller ambitions. She didn't think about him much anymore. He'd been a catalyst, nothing more. Her parents visited every few weeks, and Eleanor taught Megan things about ranching she'd never learned growing up. Thomas played with his grandchildren and told them stories about their mother's bravery. The wounds healed slowly, but they healed. One evening, 5 years after their saloon wedding, Megan and Dylan sat on the porch, watching the sun set over land that belonged to them. Sarah was chasing fireflies. Thomas was asleep against Dylan's chest. "You ever regret it?" Dylan asked quietly. "Regret what?" "Saying yes that night. Jumping without knowing where you'd land." Megan looked at him, at this man who'd offered her a way out when she'd needed one, who'd worked beside her through everything, who'd never once tried to change her into something she wasn't. "Not for 1 second," she said. "You never." He shifted Thomas to his other shoulder. "Although I'll admit that first morning when you couldn't walk after the ride, I had some doubts." "You had doubts I wanted to die." "I know. You were cursing a blue streak under your breath. You heard that. The whole valley heard that." He grinned. "That's when I knew you'd make it. Anyone who can curse that creatively while barely able to stand has the backbone for ranch life. That's your measure of success. Creative cursing. It's as good as any." Sarah ran up to the porch, breathless and grass-stained. "Mama, I caught 3 fireflies." "That's wonderful, honey." "Papa says fireflies are good luck. Is that true?" Megan looked at Dylan, and he looked back at her, and they both smiled. "Yeah, baby," Megan said. "That's true." Sarah ran off to catch more luck, and Dylan pulled Megan close with his free arm. They sat like that, as darkness fell, the 3 of them 4, when Sarah finally wore herself out and climbed up to join them, breathing together in the quiet. "Megan. Yeah. I love you." 3 simple words he said every day, but they still made her heart skip. "I love you too. Think we'll make it. Make it where, forever. Old age. All of it." Megan thought about the question seriously. About everything they'd survived already. About the work still ahead. About the life they were building, one hard day at a time. "Yeah," she said finally. "I think we will." "How can you be sure?" "Because we already made it through the impossible part. We married strangers and turned them into family. Everything else is just details." Dylan laughed and Sarah stirred against Megan's shoulder. Thomas snored softly. The ranch stretched out around them, quiet and real, and entirely theirs. 5 years ago, Megan Sloan had walked into a saloon in a wedding dress, broken and desperate, and ready for anything except what she got. She'd been humiliated, disowned, scared out of her mind. She'd married a man she didn't know on a bet that anything was better than nothing, and she'd been wrong about that. This wasn't better than nothing. This was better than everything she'd thought she wanted. This was freedom and partnership and work that mattered and love that was earned instead of expected. This was her life, chosen and built and fought for with every calloused hand and early morning and moment she'd refused to give up. The best things in life came from the most unexpected places. That's what she'd tell Sarah and Thomas when they were old enough to understand. Sometimes you had to jump into darkness trusting you'd figure out how to fly on the way down. Sometimes strangers became family, and saloons became churches, and desperate choices became the best decisions you ever made. Sometimes a cowboy offering his hand was exactly what you needed, even when you didn't know you needed anything at all. Megan looked at Dylan one more time, memorizing this moment. Her husband, her children, her land, her life, all of it real and hard, and more beautiful than any silk-lined cage could ever be. "Darlin," Dylan said softly. "Yeah. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for asking." And that was enough. That was everything. That was the life they'd chosen together, and they'd keep choosing it every day for as long as they both breathed. Because love wasn't about lightning strikes or perfect moments, or knowing for certain what came next. Love was about showing up when things got hard, and choosing each other anyway, and building something worth keeping, even when the whole world said you couldn't. They'd built that. Against every odd, despite every doubt, through every storm that tried to tear them apart. And they'd keep building it day